we are in essentially the Willy Wonka of bikes in Chicago. This is a little legendary place called Working Bikes, and it has a special place in a lot of people's hearts. And they get so many bikes refurbished and just back out there. They ship them all around the world. And a lot of Chicagoans have bikes from Working Bikes. My bike is from Working Bikes.
My first bike was from Working Bikes too.
And they also sell our bike lights. So during the pandemic, there was just this explosion in people biking.
Oh my God.
I mean, just bike shops didn't have bikes.
Yeah.
I mean, they couldn't get bikes. They were all sold out. If you went to even like a big box retailer like Target and you went down to the bike aisle, there was just nothing. And it was that way just forever. So there was just this huge influx with people biking, and some people were using it as a way to reduce their COVID exposure. There were a lot of people that were doing it as a way just to stay sane. There were people that were trying to get exercise in but didn't want to go to the gym because of COVID, and you name it. But with that, we just noticed that, one, that was awesome, that there was a ton of new bike friends out on the streets, right? The more people biking, the safer we all are. But one thing that we noticed is a lot of people didn't have bike lights. And I don't know about you, but I've always been like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we could just give that person a bike light?
Yes.
And coincidentally, I was out on the lakefront, illegally when the lakefront was closed down. And it was after dark. And I just saw all these people that didn't have bike lights. And I had been thinking, man, I really wish that I could just give people bike lights. And then coincidentally, the next morning, I woke up to an email from one of our followers, and they were like, hey, do you know where we can get a lot of bike lights? And I started, just kind of digging into what they were trying to get at, and they had the same notion. So them and their friends had noticed a lot of people biking without bike lights, and they wanted to figure out how to just give people bike lights, no strings attached. And we quickly kind of figured out hey, well, we don't want to give away cheap bike lights. And, this group was already willing to put in a decent chunk of money. So we were like, well, what if we just got nice bike lights? And maybe people that follow us would sponsor bike lights too. If we already have some funding, then we can attach more funding to it. And we were hoping that we could get 100 sets of bike lights and do a set so that it had front and back lights. And they must be USB rechargeable, because if they weren't USB rechargeable, they would just end up in the trash, and we didn't want to add to things just going into the landfill.
Absolutely.
So we got 100 sponsored, and we were pretty over the moon. We were very, very excited by that. And they, when we started to give them away, we really had no idea how to do it. We had some ideas. We wanted to make sure that they got to people that needed them the most. And I learned that, hey, giving them out at night, you can clearly see who's biking without bike lights. So would do that, identify, where to give them away. But I tended to give them away on nights that it was a presidential debate. Because I didn't want to sit at home and listen to all of that.
Absolutely.
So on the nights where most of social media was maybe not the most positive, I was out on the street giving away bike lights and posting social media posts of just these happy photos of people receiving those bike lights that people had sponsored one by one. And from that, it just I think people got really excited to be able to participate in that. So then we did another batch. So we got another 100. And then we got another batch, and I checked today, and over 3,000 sets of bike lights, USB rechargeable bike lights, have been sponsored so far.
Which is a bunch of batches.
And we didn't know how to give away bike lights back in the day, and we kind of figured it out around here. Rick has become a little bit of the Ed McMahon of giving away bike lights in Chicago. How do you give them away?
Sometimes it's difficult because you're not typically approached by someone randomly riding their bike up to you trying to give you something. You automatically think, what's their hustle? So sometimes it takes a little bit of convincing, but by and large, I mean, the response is incredible because once it registers that you're only there to give them free bike lights, and then you open the box and they're nice, you tell them they're rechargeable, and then you talk about bike lane uprising. I mean, the positivity just keeps compounding on itself.
I'm sure there's nothing like it, right?
No,
when someone just comes, it was funny because when she said, she was like, oh, Rick does it. He's done it in multiple cities, which we'll talk about in a moment. And I was like, so you just run up to people I said, I know cats be like, look, I don't want none, get away from me, everything under the sun. And then when they realize, I'm sure it's just like that magical moment of like someone giving me something, which is rare. I mean, that just feels rare today.
Rare. Yeah.
I mean, I think, one way that I've found works the best is asking if people have bike lights. And usually they'll be like, oh no, I'm so sorry, as if like I needed their charger or something. And they're apologizing that they can't help me. And then I was like, oh, here, would you like some? And then I just give them to them.
Yeah.
And then, but if you say just like free bike lights, nobody wants them.
Or I'll even have folks that'll say how much, and they'll try and pay me.
They'll say yes.
And I'm like, no, man, they're free, and then you have to convince them they're free.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why it does say that they were sponsored by other cyclists.
But they're like so appreciative. They like want to offer you money for them.
Oh, I'm sure. Absolutely. So you've handed out lights not only in Chicago, but other places too. So you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Christina does a great job of outfitting me with bike lights. So when I'm just naturally traveling, I'll just throw them in my bag because if I'm going to visit a city, chances are I'm going to be riding my bike. I'm going to rent a bike there. I'm going to ride around the city. So why not bring bike lights? And it's just another way to engage the local cycling community. So Indianapolis is where I moved from. Detroit is where I grew up. And so when I'm in those cities and I got bike lights, like it's just a great and feel good. Detroit probably had the nicest, most accepting people. Like every single person there was just ecstatic to get them.
I think we've given away bike lights so far in like 10 to like 13 cities so far, like the batches. So like we're sending like between like 200 and 300 sets to a city at a time.
Oh, that's what's up.
And we're currently crowdsourcing for one that's like 28% funded, but I mean so far over 3,000 sets have been funded.
So I want to say thank you to all the donors who have supported Bike Lane Uprising's Bike Light donation giveaway. It has been a tremendous benefit to people all across the United States. I had the privilege and honor of being an emissary for Bike Lane Uprising in Oakland and Alameda County, East Bay in California. I serve as the mayor of the city of Emeryville, very outspoken on bike safety and improving safe routes to schools and access to equitable places for young people in particular to enjoy the lifestyle that comes with cycling. We had one of our best giveaways was in the Fruitvale neighborhood of East Oakland. We advertised it through local bike leaders in that community. We had tons of kids and families come out. We gave away a lot of lights. We had a display of talent and shows in a big parking lot at the BART station, and then we went out on a ride together. Kids had their lights on. They were one-wheeling it. They were having a good time, and the community was loving it. Residents were honking their horns. People came out on their porch to cheer them on. And what it really does is it builds a sense of community. It helps young people in particular feel empowered and safe in their community using a bicycle. And then with the lights we had left, because we did a 300 light donation in Alameda County, with the lights we had left, we turned it over to the Bikery. We had about 75 left. We gave them to the Bikery, which is a bike shop in East Oakland that serves a traditionally disadvantaged community, and those lights are made available for free to people who come in to get a bike, service a bike, or just have questions about biking who might otherwise not have a light. So it's a great program, and grateful to everybody who supports it because you're making a difference in the lives of people in communities like mine.
Hi, my name is William Hazen. I am a transit operator and bike advocate here in Indianapolis. Many of my passengers use bicycles as a way to cover the final mile from their bus stop to their ultimate destination. I sponsored bike lights through Bike Lane Uprising as a way to help protect my passengers and other vulnerable road users after a year of record pedestrian and cyclist incidents here in the city of Indianapolis.
Giving away high-quality USB rechargeable bike light sets through Bike Lane Uprising in DC has been about building joy and community. There is nothing more exciting than standing on the side of a bike lane used by transportation and delivery cyclists and pulling people over and putting assembled bike lights directly on their bike, wishing them a lovely day and handing them the chargers in the box.
Hi, my name is Phoebe, and I've been a volunteer with Bike Lane Uprising for a little over a year now. Last spring, I helped out with giving out bike lights in Oakland, and this year I'm excited that we're doing the first ever bike light giveaway in New York City. I want to thank everybody who's sponsored a set of bike lights. Each and every one of these sets of lights is going to go to somebody who really needs it. And thanks to you, we're going to be able to help somebody get to their destination safely.
Hi there, this is Clark Thompson from New Orleans Ghost Bikes and Bike Uneasy, telling you about the situation in New Orleans. 20% of our citizens do not have access to a motor vehicle. So bicycles are an essential mode of transportation for people getting to their jobs, for people getting to school, for people getting around town to see their families and friends. Many of those that do not have access to a motor vehicle also do not put lights on their bikes. And all too often, we end up putting up ghost bikes for those individuals. Shout out to Bike Lane Uprising for their offer of providing bike lights to these folks.